Hey everyone, it's Monday. You know what that means? It means we start off our expert series, and we always do that strong with Greg Dickerson. How you doing, man?
Doing great, Michael. How about you?
I'm doing very well. We have a couple of exciting topics today. One
Yep.
that is personally very interesting to me. We'll talk about that second. But we're going to talk about first a question you and I get a lot, and that is comes in different flavors, but we're going to call it the Great Reset. There's a lot of talk in certain parts of, I guess, the country, the economy, the world that believes some uber cabal of powerful, wealthy families are out there coordinating some kind of great reset. I'll just stop there and let you kind of share the questions you get and kind of initial thoughts, and we'll just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So it's not new. It's a concept and a an agenda that's been put forth by the World Economic Forum. And if you don't know what the World Economic Forum is, you can Google that and learn all about them. They do a summit every year in Davos where industry leaders and government officials come together to talk about a lot of different things. So one side of the Great Reset, there's a conspiracy theory around it. The other side is what it actually is, which is a theory and it's an agenda and it's a policy that's put forth by the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwartz. He wrote a book on it. So it's kind of his vision for a new future beyond COVID-19 and the environment of COVID-19 and the what he calls the opportunity it creates to reset a lot of different things moving forward. So let's talk about the conspiracy theory first.
Sure.
So people are scared. Okay, we've got COVID-19. We've had economic meltdown. We've got people out of work. We got people that can't feed their families. They can't pay their bills. People are scared. Okay. And there are people that will feed on that fear and put these conspiracy theories out there. And a lot of it is to get hits, to get views, you know, some of it is propaganda from other countries. But at the end of the day, for anybody who's listening, I want you to understand what it takes for a conspiracy theory to actually work. You need unprecedented cooperation on a global level, especially for something like what they're calling the Great Reset, which the theory of the conspiracy is the wealthiest people in the world, 1,000 of them, and all these government leaders are all in this room and they're all agreeing on what they're going to do with the future of this country. They're going to control everything. They're going to own everything. They're going to tell us, what we can have, and we're all going to become, their little, pawns, right? Do you understand the kind of cooperation that requires on a global scale in order to pull something like that off? So it's just not feasible. Okay, you can't even get 10 people in the same political party to agree on something, or in corporate America, to agree on something, much less government leaders across the world. And I want you to understand what I'm saying. Number one, they have to agree on who's going to be in charge. They have to agree on whose agenda is going to be pushed. They have to agree on what are the solutions, how are you going to solve, and who's going to be the ultimate beneficiary. Now, if you think about the history of the world, there have been people that have tried to conquer the world since the world began, and none of them ever succeed. Okay, it just doesn't happen. You can't conquer the world because you can't get everybody on the same page to agree that one leader, one organization has all the answers and will control everything. So it's a fear-based thing, and conspiracy theories just can't work. You need too much cooperation with too many different people in too many different places. And as far as the United States goes, as we have just seen, we are the greatest nation in the world because we are a nation of law. The rule of law reigns in the United States. And regardless of what everybody thinks or whatever, Trump lost and he's going. He's going to leave the White House. Okay. So you can't retain control in a free country like this. Okay. We are the leaders of the free world because of our system of democracy. We have the rule of law. You have the right to be heard. You have the right to cast your vote. You have the right to do whatever you want, wherever you want, however you want. Now, a lot of people think the mask mandate, just look at what we've dealt with in coronavirus. Okay. Nobody's being locked in their house, forced. Nobody's being physically forced to wear a mask. Nobody's being yanked out of their house and taken somewhere. When you look at some other countries, like, China and some other countries, where they've done some things to control their population, a communist country, you've seen those things happen. That's not happening in the United States. And it's not going to happen on a global scale because there's other democracies around the world that That just isn't going to happen. And as we've seen in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of uprising in a lot of these other countries for individual freedoms, for democracy and things like that. So the world is becoming more democratic, not more socialistic, communistic.
Mhm.
So that's the conspiracy thought side of the
Yeah, let
Great
me
Reset.
let me chime in there as well, just to kind of stay on that side of the fence. So I first heard of the Great Reset, on this channel when people were kind of just leaving comments. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So I've done some
Mhm.
research, looked around, and it just falls apart for logic reasons, like you're pointing out. So a couple of things I just want to point out. First thing that fell apart for me is you're going to get in this world environment and you're going to get China and the US to agree. Like you said, you got to understand who the leader is. That's not going to happen. What you saw back when there was two economic powers of the US and Russia, they don't agree on anything, right? There's no chance that China and the US agree to give anyone an inch. So if you want some great uber world power, you think that China and the US are going to agree on anything? Not going to happen. That's strike one. Strike two is the Great Reset. First off, was an idea done by Klaus before COVID, right? It came out. And again, as the World Economic Forum, frankly, I want them thinking about things like that, right? The World Economic Forum is a small organization, has a sexy title, right? It's the World Economic Forum, right? It doesn't have any power. It's like the WHO, right? It doesn't have any power. It's an organization of, I don't know, hundreds of well-intentioned individuals who get to sit in a room and pontificate about some uber future who don't live in the real world. It's just they don't live in the real world. And then the other thing that I think has helped the conspiracy, frankly, is the guy's name, Klaus. It just feels like a James Bond villain, right?
And if you hear him talk, yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like this James Bond villain. So as somebody who grew up watching James Bond and other spy movies, the evil villain who's trying to do world powers, this, that, get the satellite, do this. It's like, oh, Klaus, it's a perfect name for a conspiracy theory. So again, and I know this video is going to get just tons of just nasty comments because lots of people are passionate. And the other thing I'll say about the conspiracy theorists, and again, there's a lot of YouTubers out there who are just pounding negativity and fear, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're actually not doing your followers a service. You're scaring them, and when you're scared, you do nothing. My greatest wealth has been created in environments where others had fear. Like 2010 is the best example. Everybody
Yeah.
was afraid the world was going to end. And if you are scaring your viewers and you're not helping them prepare for the future and take advantage of some opportunities that will undoubtedly come from this, what are you doing? You're getting some clicks for ads and you feel good about that, but you haven't helped anybody. That's
Yeah.
the big tragedy and fear.
So the real conspiracy theorists are the ones that prey on people's fear and create these things. So
Mhm.
so that's what you want to watch out for, folks, is watch out for the people that are pushing conspiracy theories, because that's what's not good. So we talk about what it's not. So let's
Mhm.
talk about what it is.
Sure.
So what the World Economic Forum is, like you said, it's a forum. Okay, the World Economic Forum has been around for 20 years or more. It's thousands of people that come from all over the world, industry leaders, business leaders, wealthy individuals, government leaders, to talk about big ideas.
Mhm.
And they do have an agenda, and they have
Sure.
speakers on topics. Their agenda now is the Great Reset, and they want to come talk about social aspects, social agendas, things like that. In terms of how do we address economic inequality? How do we address a pandemic? How do we address climate change? Climate change is real, okay? The question is, what's causing it and how do you fix it? So that's the real discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, economic hardship right now. The economies of the world are suffering because of the coronavirus. So what's the fix? How do you move forward, and how do you prevent something like this from happening again? And then the pandemic itself. I mean, this is a unique situation. It's not the first and isn't going to be the last. And thank goodness this one isn't as bad as it could have been. If this was like a Spanish flu and you had a, mortality rate that was, 50% or more, that's a different animal. So the World Economic Forum brings together world leaders to discuss big ideas in terms of their agenda of why they're bringing people there. Why do people really go? It's a networking event. People go to make connections, do business deals, and network. They're not there for conspiracy theories. They're not there to
No,
try to control the world. And again, you're not going to be able to, you put 10 billionaires in a room, you think one of them is going to agree that somebody else is going to lead all them and write, and they're, you know,
no
just ain't going to
chance.
happen. So they're there. And I've been part of trade associations, organizations. The World Economic Forum is no different than the National Association of Realtors or, you know, commercial real estate, you know, CCIM
Mhm.
associations where they hold, you know, the commercial real estate, you know, shopping center conference in Vegas every year, and, you know, International Shopping Center, ICSC, International Shopping Center Conference, you know, that
Mhm.
they do every year, or, you know, your local home builders association, or, you know, your educational foundation. I mean, think tanks, right? So these
Yeah.
things have been, they're all over the place. So you bring people together, solve big problems. How do you solve racial injustice? How do you solve social injustice? How do you solve income inequality? How do you create a better world, a cleaner
Yeah.
world? You know, those types of things. So that's the ideas that they are really pushing. And, you know, there are some far-fetched things. Now, let me put it to you this way, that where everybody can understand where some of these theories come from. So you can be afraid, and you have people that are pushing these fear things, you know, because they have their own agenda. Or you can look at it as exciting. Everybody's been everybody's been to Disneyland or Disney World, and, you know, Tomorrowland.
Mhm.
So when you looked at these ideas of the future and how we were going to do things in Tomorrowland, or if you look at NASA and the National Space Programs, or what Elon Musk is doing, well, there's no conspiracies there. Nobody's afraid. It's exciting.
Yeah.
So when you think about these ideas that they're talking about, hey, it would be great if we could create, you know, global cooperation where the economy flourishes, and we can't have an environment like we're experiencing right now,
Mhm.
where if a pandemic does pop up, we can squash it quick, and all of the countries of the world come together with their best scientists and their best science to be able to take care of this thing and nail it and just get rid of it. So that's kind of really what it's all about in terms of the agenda that they're trying to push. Now, when you read into the reports and the deep pockets, it does get a little bit, you know, more socialist in there.
Sure.
And you know, there are some really out there ideas, you know, and those types of things. But like you said, they have no power. They have no real influence. They have no real control. They're just bringing people together that are really there to network and do business deals.
Yeah. And again, I dove into this about 45 or 60 days ago just because it kept coming up in my comments. And again, when I read, I didn't read his book, but I read articles, I watched videos. When you kind of stay at the high level, I think all the things that the World Economic Forum is going for are generally good things. It's hard to disagree with, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's how people take grains of truth in a 10-year agenda. That's what the Great Reset is, right? The 2030 agenda,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then they pull on one thread, and then they blow it up into this greater thing. Conspiracies are always most impactful when they're built on a grain of truth, a grain of fact that can be validated. And that's what I think people have done.
Yeah.
Again, I applaud the World Economic Forum. I'm glad there's 100,000 smart people thinking about life-changing things. What happened? The reason I believe these forums need to make these outlandish claims that you and I both know don't have any way of getting implemented is they're looking to shave the edges, right? So like this whole thing of aim for the stars, you'll end up in the moon, right? So let's come out with some really bold claims, right? You know, I don't know, energy efficiency or whatever it is. And then what will happen is it'll just shave the edges, right? Climate, right? Okay, well, maybe fossil fuels will get ratcheted back. We'll go more electric. I don't know what it's going to be, but and oh, by the way, the World Economic Forum will call that a success, right? They will call that a success, right? They had the big goal, 1,000, miles out, and we get 10 miles closer. That's what they're trying to do. Again, nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing I have ever read that was published that I'm afraid of. There's lots of crazy talk that, again, when you get 100 or 1,000 smart people in a room, some of them are going to be batshit crazy. That's okay. I mean, just like you said, right? In the National Association of Realtors or even your home association, there are people with crazy ideas. But that's why,
Yeah, think about any church, any
yeah,
board, any organization you've ever been part of, and imagine getting all of them to agree on one agenda, exactly who's in charge, how everything's going to get done, and who's going to make those decisions. It just doesn't happen.
you
So,
can't even do
you
that in
know,
the Republican or the Democrat Party. None of them agree, right? You can't get all of,
right, which
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
which is a divided government is another thing that makes us great, because
Exactly.
we have the ability to have our own ideas and to express our own ideas and to go out and protest. And, if there were and that's the other thing, the new world order. So
Oh
if
yeah.
there were an agenda and a conspiracy, you wouldn't be out there protesting. You'd be locked in your house. People
Oh, they'd
wouldn't,
shoot you. They just
so
take you out. You're
nobody,
done. Gone.
yeah. And as you can see, what's happening is, governments and states and cities are trying to get less, intrusive. They don't want to intrude on people's lives, but they want to keep us safe, which they have an obligation to do from a health, public health standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not getting worse, and they're not forcing. It's actually getting easier as we understand this thing and we start moving forward in terms of what they're asking us to do,
Yeah.
things like that. Nobody's trying to control anybody, but I can understand for some people how they might feel that way. Anytime they feel like their rights are being infringed upon, in a time like this when people are already scared, it can create those things. So that's what that is. New World Order, that's another part of it. And they talk about the fourth industrial revolution and all that. I mean, it's just technology growing. Some of the theories out there are that, that people are going to become robots and all that kind of stuff. And, and things like that. And, they're looking at some of the stuff that Elon Musk is doing and, that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, technology is growing. Artificial intelligence is growing. Big data is growing. That's going to play a bigger role in our lives. Even now you can be talking, and all of your stuff is basically off. And the next thing you know, you and I are talking about, Teslas, and then we start seeing these ads for Teslas pop up on our phone. And all we did was say Tesla. So, the technology's there, it's watching and listening, but it's for that purpose. It's not to take over your life or control you. It's to sell you stuff, and to help businesses get their products to people and things like that. So the New World Order, that's a whole nother conversation where they think that the conspiracy is that this is the New World Order, this, World Economic Forum people.
Mm-hmm.
The New World Order is simply nations in the order of the power of nations. Right now, the United States is the biggest economy in the world. We are the global leader. China has come up in terms of GDP, but they will never be a global leader. Okay, they just can't. They're a communist country. Again, we are the greatest country in the world. We always will be. We're going to be the world's reserve currency. We're going to be the largest economy. These other companies rely on us, or countries rely on us in order to help them grow. If we pulled out of these other countries, they would not make it on their own.
Yeah.
We can make it on our own. We could pull out of everything and survive on our own in the United States without importing or exporting one piece of anything. Most other countries can't do that. Economists may or may not agree with that statement, but this country was founded
it would be a little disruptive, but we certainly could. Right. It'd be a disruptive
yeah.
for a year or two as we built it in some infrastructure. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and independence, this country was founded on, independence, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise, freedom to stake your own claim, taxation without representation. That's how all this stuff was founded. And that's why this is such a great country. And, nobody else is even close because of what makes this country great. Now, is it going to last forever? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but these other things, it's just not anything you need to worry about. What you need to worry about is, how do we get through this time? How do we stay safe? How do we capitalize on, opportunities in 2021 as we get through this and get behind us and get the vaccine out there? So those are the things you want to focus on.
Well, that's great. That's actually going to be a topic for our video number 2. I have an idea that I want your coaching thoughts on. So we'll get there in a minute. The last thing I'll say about the Great Reset is, if you're spending hours and hours down that rabbit hole, time to get out. The Great Reset right now is just building ad revenue for other folks. It doesn't tell you to do anything. It doesn't prepare you for the opportunities of 2021. I actually think we're closer to the roaring 20s than a Great Depression, because we are almost out of this, and people are we are a consumer-based economy that is going to spend once we are out of this. So any closing comments on this topic, Greg?
I think that's it. For me, the Great Reset is, a lot of things were already in motion before this happened, from a technological standpoint, from the way we work, the way we live, the way we consume goods. It just kind of fast forwarded a lot of that, okay, in terms of, online ordering, Zoom, working remotely and not needing a big, headquarters, things like that. We were already headed towards a lot of these things right now. And it's also been a time to reflect, to be able to, understand and enjoy your environment, what's going on around you, and the possibilities of how things can look in the future moving forward. But this is a temporary glitch in our history. This was a thing that, nobody saw it coming like it. Well, they obviously, Bill Gates talked 5 years ago about a pandemic that was airborne flu like. This isn't new. They've been there in the past. They're going to be there in the future. But this will be behind us next year. We get vaccines out, we get treatments out, mid next year, toward the end of next year. The pandemic itself should be over. Economic recovery is going to take a little bit longer. But like you said, once that's there, it's going to be off to the races, and we've already seen it.
Yeah.
You're not going to keep America down. You're not going to keep us down. We are the leaders of the world. Everything will bounce back, and other countries are bouncing back as quickly as they can
Mhm.
as things, ebb and flow with the virus.
Very well done, man. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to topic number 2.
Sounds good.